People ask me, do you ever get scared? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. And yesterday was one of those days. You see, yesterday I had to have my very first ever MRI. Now, I don't know about you, but the thought of being in a little tiny tube without any control over what's happening completely freaked me out. I totally admit I'm a person who has to sit in the aisle seat in a crowded theater. I'm the person that needs to be able to face the door in a restaurant. I'm the person that needs a getaway plan and doesn't like to fly because of the feeling of a lack of control over the environment. If you can relate to any of that, I'm going to tell you how I got through a 30-minute MRI in a tube that was way smaller than I was expecting and how I came out the other side, so to speak. And this is how I tap into the kind of tools that I teach people, the ways that I work with people to overcome. We all have the inner stuff, the crap, the baggage, the old beliefs, the past experiences, traumas that are feeding into our reactions today. And I'm here to tell you there's a way to move through it. Because if I can do it, you can do it too. So I've been having some issues with my hip, and I've had a X-ray. I had an X-ray. I almost said chest X-ray. Wrong place. I had an X-ray of my hip, and it just showed a little bit of arthritic change. Hello, 75, right? And so the doctor said, "Well, but you're having quite a bit of issue with it right now, so I think you need an MRI." Now, look, I went through a whole thing of researching wide bore, which means it's bigger, open MRI, feet first versus head first, all these things because I was already having a lot of anxiety over the thought of being shut in and out of control, trapped, can't get out kind of a feeling. Maybe you can relate. There's even a thing on the form that says, "Are you claustrophobic?" I've never really applied that term to myself, but in this case, I just felt a lot of anxiety coming up over it. But I also wanted to know what was going on with my hip and feeling like kind of be a big girl and get this done. And so I thought I'd done all the research. I talked to my doctor about a feet first MRI, and basically the impression I was given was that your head will be outside the machine. The rest of you just be in there, just laying there while I do this. And that's what I was expecting. I was still quite nervous though. So I go in and get my gown. I go into the hallway. First of all, I'm called in for my appointment, and the technician who, well, let's just say she wasn't exactly an angel of mercy, right? Because I immediately, in my anxiety, I am saying, I'm having feet first and my head will be out, right? And she said, "No, your feet first, but your head will not be out." And I said, "Well, that's what they just told me that even at the front desk when I confirmed it." They said, and she basically barked out at me, "Well, they're not technicians, so they don't know. We do." And it was like, okay, kind of was the feeling. So I got ready, and I'm still again very anxious, but I just felt like, I need to be able to do this. So in we go, and I get into the room, and it's not even one that looks particularly wider, like you're going to have more space around you. It looked very small, and uh, and I get on the table, and then the next thing is, well, you have to have your to open the hip, you have to have your toes pointed together and your heels out. And to help you do that, wrap, 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 wrap. We're going to bind them. And so I'm lying there. They're like tethering my toes together. Um, Maybe you can imagine what I started feeling like. But I'm just like, okay, and how long is this going to take? Well, probably about 30 minutes. And they were so brusque, though, so brusque. And I've pondered this more than anything since yesterday. Why? Why are they working in this field when they're on the actual form that you fill out? There's a question asking if you're claustrophobic. And I checked yes on this instance. And it was almost like maybe it went the opposite for them. Instead of any more compassion or human connection, they had less, like maybe impatient. I had this sense of not being liked by them, being too much trouble, that kind of thing. And so, but I'm going along, and they said, "Do you want music?" And I'm already starting to move towards the machine. I said, "Do you want music?" I said, "Yes." "What kind?" "Soothing." And boom, comes some big fluffy earphones, and no further explanation except, "Here's the ball in your hand that you can squeeze, but only squeeze it if it's an emergency for us to bring you out." And in I go. So I got through it. There were a lot of things about it I wasn't expecting. Like there's warmth. You start to get really, really warm during certain parts of the imaging and feel like you're kind of just heating up from the inside out. you feel a vibration that's very, very strong during parts of it. And of course, everyone tells you it's noisy, and they didn't give me earplugs. They just gave me these big furry earphone kind of things. And I asked for calming music, and it was mostly more classical oriented, kind of hard to hear, quite frankly, because of the noise of the machine. And I'm just going to tell you how I got through it. Because the thing is, I teach people how to get through hard things. I teach people that we can overcome and that we can move through. But that doesn't mean I'm immune to it. That doesn't mean I don't have feelings like that over certain things. That doesn't mean I don't have old experiences that rise up and remind me of something else. It means all of those things. And so the very first decision was I closed my eyes. That was the very first one. I didn't want to see myself going into this tube. And during the procedure, I definitely felt like, do not open your eyes even for a moment, because I needed to go into my own world and stay there and not start thinking about how close everything was. Because honestly, when we're going in, I could feel it brushing against my arms. It was quite narrow feeling. So, one of the things I did, I imagined I was on a little boat ride, like in Small World at Disney World or Disneyland. And sometimes, have you ever been on a little gondola or a little boat on a ride like that, and it kind of goes forward and then it stops and it kind of goes forward and might, move around? Like, there's kind of a feeling like that inside the MRI machine of movement. I don't understand all the things of why, but it's kind of like you're moving forward a little and stopping, moving back, and there's kind of this variation to, you're not just laying there, and obviously not in silence, but also not in complete stillness either. And so I just imagined that. I imagined scenes in Small World. I took myself on an inner journey. Deeply, deeply, deeply we went. And I had some other techniques that I teach other people that I was using, because you can't move except maybe a tiny bit of movement in your hand or something like that. The guy even told me, don't, because I said I'm pretty nervous. And he said, well, don't take deep breaths because that'll make you move. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I'll see if I can overcome my little panic attack here without breathing deeply. So, but the music helped a lot. And I went into the music and I just did a lot of visualization. And if you're not, it's called aphantasia. If you're not a person that thinks in visual, actual images, but you feel certain things, perhaps you see colors, perhaps you see designs, just however you experience music, allow yourself to do that. I highly recommend, if they offer you that you can listen to music, listen to music. And if that means you need heavy metal or whatever you need, I preferred soothing without any lyrics to it. I just wanted the music, and it was contemporary, but done in a nice kind of classical way, kind of like being on Bridgerton. I even imagined that at one point, if you've ever watched that show, where they show the dancing scenes where it's they've take contemporary music and they've made it more like traditional. I'm going the wrong direction here, kind of make it traditional. And so I did that. I told myself so many stories. I called in my guides. I called in God, my father, into imaging that I had with that. I did all kinds of a journey. And I also used the music as a measuring device, because every periodically, after a few selections, there would be a faint voice, and there was like a DJ, right? So they were using some kind of streaming music service, but it was still so loud I couldn't tell what the person was saying. But I decided that was like a marker that this many minutes in, now they're speaking. That means maybe I'm 10 minutes in, maybe I'm 15 minutes in, and now we're going to the next round of music. And so I kind of measured time that way as well. And honestly, I really got to the point where it's like, you've come this far. Don't make it all be for nothing. You've come this far. You can keep going. You've come this far. You can do hard things. And you can apply that in all kinds of things of life. When you're going through something difficult, you've come this far. You're going to make it all for nothing? Are you going to bail out now? And I had that little ball that's connected to a cord of some kind, and, they slammed it in my hand and said, there's your stress ball. And I would like, am I supposed to squeeze it to relieve stress? And it's like, if you squeeze it if you need to stop, but only if it's an emergency. And it's like, what constitutes an emergency? How far do I go before I say this is an emergency? But it actually did help to hold on to it. No, it's there. If I really need to stop, I can. But it reminded me of when I was in labor the first time with my first child, because I remember it was distinctly saying, because I'd gone through Lamaze and I'd gone through learning all the breathing, and all the things. And I remember at one point being in tears and saying, I feel like somebody lied to me, that that it would be easier, that kind of a thing. And I kind of felt like that with this. Feel like somebody lied to me, that I was expecting it to be a different way and had to instantly adapt. And adapt is the other key word here. We have to be able to adapt to the current situation and use our inner tools to be able to cope with it, to move through it, to deal with it, to just be able to do the thing we were there to do in the first place, which was to have this test done. Then I reached a point where it got quiet. And in that quiet moment, I thought, maybe we're done, because the music stopped. And I really just had spent the last half hour talking to myself the way I would talk to someone that I love. And that's exactly what I did. That's the other thing about getting through it. So I focused on the music and I gave meaning to it. I kept coming back to a way of thinking, a story I was telling myself that was bigger than the moment, that had more impact and more import than the moment. I spoke to myself like I would to someone that I love and cherish and care about. And the most essential, maybe not most, but I kept my eyes shut. I kept them closed the whole time. There were a couple times I was tempted to, take a little peek. Where are we out here? No, don't do it, because I knew I would break the state that I was in. I would break that ability to go to the place I needed to go to do this. And there's a lot of other things that I was using that I teach people to do for themselves, to be able to get themselves into a different state of mind, a different energy. There's an energetic practice to all of this. So when I felt myself emerging and all of a sudden somebody was taking the headphones off, that's when I opened my eyes. And you know what? Those two technicians still didn't offer even a small word of kindness. I have to admit my back hurt at this point from laying on it in this position. And I said, not quite sure I'm going to be able to sit up easily. And do you think they even offered a hand? No. So I actually left this feeling proud of myself that I got through it, but also quite honestly, kind of angry at the treatment that I received from these two technicians that had like zero interest in being compassionate or warm or caring or encouraging or any of those things. But the other thing is the tools that I used and the tools that I teach people to use, I got through that very quickly. I didn't spend the rest of the day and into the night being really just angry at how I'd been treated. I was able to process and move through that very, very quickly and have a good rest of the day. And by the way, a great outcome. Let's hear it for technology. Within 1 hour, I had the results. And it's just going to be a little physical therapy, movement, that type of thing. There's nothing seriously wrong. So all good news. I hope this helps you. And I am so on a mission to help people move through the stuck places in their life. And stuck places come up periodically like this. And then there's the bigger stuckness of why isn't your business flourishing? Why don't you feel more peaceful about life? Why are you having so much anxiety? Why is your relationship struggling? So many different things that what's keeping you, especially if you're past 50, from moving into the life that you truly desire to have. And where are the tools that you can use when life throws its curveballs and a few rocks in the way of your journey? So I would love for you to be able to experience the beginning of seeing one thing, even just one thing that might be getting in the way for you right now. And the way we do that is I offer a call. It's absolutely free. I call it the seeing call, because together we're going to see one thing that when you see it, I like to say, one seen cannot be unseen. Once you see it, just in that short conversation, that alone will start to shift things for you. If you'd like to experience that, I'm putting the link in the description. You can book a time with me. This is not a sales pitch. It is free. I'd love to have the experience of speaking with you and getting to know you as well. So this is Tina Lorenz. I'm 75 and I had my first MRI yesterday. And yes, I was scared and I got through it. And if you're going through something difficult, you can get through it too. Thanks for being here. I would love to hear in the comments if you faced off with something like this and how you got through it. Until next time, I will be talking to you again soon. Bye for now.